really good job of continuing to stock the pipeline. Obviously, they brought Joe Douglas back. He feels good about that. They lost Dave Caldwell, but seem to be firing on all cylinders still.
BLG drafts 22 days away now before that first round kicks off. You're feeling one way or another about what the Eagles might do here in first round, or what they should do in round one and even day two here with rounds 2 and 3?
Yeah, I still am of the belief they'd really like to trade up for a tackle. If that is how the board presents the opportunity there for them. They have all these extra picks. I know the draft class isn't considered to be a very great one, but if they're going to have tiers of players, and if there's someone in that kind of that tier where they can jump up and get someone to be that eventual Lean Johnson successor, maybe someone who can get in the mix at guard earlier if need be. I think they would, if they have their druthers, I think that's what they would really prefer to happen there. Again, it always depends on how the board shakes out, but I think this offense in general is really the safe bet with how much they're going to be spending on the defense in terms of these contracts that are coming up, Quinion and Cooper Jean, Jalen Carter, so on and so forth. I think they're going to really want to get younger and cheaper on offense.
What do you think? What do you think of the draft proofing? I love that from Howie. I got to tell you, there's two things I love about Howie and why I think he's the best GM in the NFL. One is contingencies. I think he's always got a contingency when things don't work, and we'll see. Right now, we haven't seen it with Jalen Phillips at edge, but I think he's better at contingencies than his peers. And number two, I think he draft proofs the roster better than anybody. And I think you've seen it. And a lot of these players aren't even going to make the Eagles, I'm convinced. But when you bring in like guys like Joe Tryon, most recently Elijah Moore, even the Stone Smarts of the world, the Damian Pierce of the world, I don't see other teams doing that. Now, again, and they go into the draft and they say, well, we need a running back. It's we don't have a running. Like Howie always has that guy that if things don't go to plan, they can at least be serviceable. Am I overrating that, or do you like that? They're the only thing. It's almost every day. Chandler Martin, who's a younger guy who got hurt and evidently they think has upside. You don't see other teams doing this. I think it's a big winning outside the margin thing for the Eagles. Agree or disagree?
Yeah, I think it's all about setting the floor. You want to be like, well, at least we have this, maybe. And obviously, things can change. There's going to be opportunities to add players down the road in the draft or final cuts, wherever it is, trades. But let's at least try to set the floor here. So I do like that approach. I also feel like looking back at the Riq Woolen signing in free agency, that wasn't about like the Eagles like, well, okay, we needed to sign the best cornerback. Like they didn't go into the free agency with that mindset. They, as you talked about, John, with contingency plans, they really wanted to keep Jalen Phillips. They couldn't, or at least didn't ultimately want to with his price tag, which is incredibly reasonable. And they said, okay, now what? It's not like, oh, we have to go out and pay the next edge rusher no matter what. Like it's not just we're so tied to this position that we have to spend this money, especially if it's not a good value. Like I think I've always, even when I've been critical of him, and I have been, I think he is really good at assessing and getting value. And I think with the Riq Woolen contract, it was a pivot to like, okay, this isn't necessarily helping us solve the Jalen Phillips gone problem, but he's available here, and this is a good value. So let's just focus on the value more than we're focusing on the position. So I think when it comes to some of these bargain signings there, it's about like, okay, how do we set the floor, and we're not going to just overspend at a position of need just because we need that position, but we're going to just try to get good value, and I think that's what they've done.
Bill G, even if they make good decisions, they've lost a lot of good players, man. Do you think the Super Bowl window is still wide open? Do you think it's still right there out in front of them, or do you think that's closed a little bit?
I don't think this era of Eagles Super Bowl windows is necessarily wide open. I think it's kind of winding down. When I say that, I'm talking about coach, quarterback, a lot of the players on the roster
currently. The crux of what this team has been.
Your core, yes, absolutely. I think when you have Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie, I think in the big picture, the window is, maybe it's not wide open in terms of it's always consistently open, but it could be opened again very soon, very easily, is how I'd say that.
At Brandon Gouton, make sure you follow him on the X platform. Read him at bleedinggreennation.com. You mentioned the draft. I'll leave it there. Last one from me. You mentioned trading up for a tackle. Do you have a favorite? Have you gotten that far? Do you have that guy you think they're going to go up and try to get? A lot of tackles that could go in the first round.
I don't have my draft crush yet. I usually do get locked in on someone every year, and I feel pretty good about that. And my track record of them actually taking that guy, it's been like scary accurate.
Yeah.
Like in the past.
Well, I
years.
can't figure out which way they're going on the offensive. No Stout. If Stout was here, I would have penciled in Kadyn Proctor and went to bed 3 weeks ago and said, all right, I'm not moving. Now I don't know. I don't know. He would have been the most Eaglesy pick of the potential picks, Kadyn Proctor, if Stoutland was here. Now I'm starting to think about Blake Miller, and I'm starting to think about Monroe Freeling, but he's going to go too high, I think. Even Max Ionacor, who's because he's such a good athlete. Although I that would scare me. He's very raw. That one wouldn't work. But there's like 7 or 8 tackles that might go in the first round. It's good odds bet to say they're going tackle.
Yeah, I agree. We'll see. All right, BLG. Appreciate you joining in today, my friend. A lot of interesting things happening in Eagle Land, as always. Not what I expected to wake up to. I went to bed last night. I saw the Jeffrey Lurie comments, and then I wake up and I see a whole
April Fools. April Fools.
How do I talk about both of these things in one show? You know, it's kind of interesting. So we'll see what happens, BLG. Thanks for joining in, my friend. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you again next week.
Sounds good, guys. See you then.